It's the ultimate betrayal. Prince William's heartbreak today over 3 sickening new revelations.
Harry being reincorporated back into his life.
On his mother, Princess Diana, by his own uncle Earl Spencer. Something that will destroy William, infuriate William. That's before you get to the betrayal from his own father.
Something has changed with Prince Harry. For years, the story was simple. He left. He went to California. He built a new life, and every time he came back to Britain, it was for a court case or a funeral or a fight. The visits were rare, they were tense, and they were usually followed by a headline that made things worse. Coming home was something Harry seemed to do only when he had no choice. That is not what is happening now. Because according to the people closest to him, Harry doesn't just want to come back for a day here and a day there anymore. He wants to come back more and more, regularly every few months. He wants what one source close to him called a foothold in Britain again, and he is right now actively working to build one. And that single shift, from a man who came home only when forced, to a man who suddenly wants to be here as often as he can, has set something in motion inside the royal family that nobody quite knows how to stop.
First, you know here on Outspoken we spend an awful amount of time talking about institutions that don't give you the full picture.
Because there is one person for whom Harry coming home more and more is not good news at all. One person who has spent years building his life very deliberately around his brother's absence. One person who, according to royal commentators, is likely to be, and I'll use their word, furious. Prince William. And it may be no coincidence that this is happening in the same year. A new book landed. A book with the word betrayal stamped across the cover, dragging every old wound in this family straight back into the daylight. So here's the question this whole video is going to answer, and I'm going to answer it honestly, with the real reporting, not the rumors. Why is Harry returning now? What changed? What is he actually after? And is it true, as the headlines are suggesting, that a new book about this family has made an already impossible situation worse and left the future king quietly seething? I'm going to take you through all of it.
Does he just want to make life as difficult as possible at the moment for William and the children? I sometimes do wonder that. This is the reporting from Matt Wilkinson, the royal editor of the Sun newspaper, who says Mountbatten Winds rejected the king's offer of a holiday at Balmoral with the rest of the royals.
The real reason behind the timing, which is more strategic than most people realize, the new book, what's actually in it, who wrote it, and what Harry and Meghan themselves said back to it. William's silence, and why it may be about to break. And the one question underneath all of it that this family has never been able to answer. The question of whether Harry can ever really come home at all.
And look, Brittany, there are a lot of issues with that, aren't they? Because we know that William is prepared to take a tougher approach for the good of the monarchy. See the way that he continues to ice out Prince Harry.
There's a lot here, and some of it is solid fact, while some of it is commentary and speculation. And I promise to tell you which is which every step of the way, because you deserve to know the difference. A quick word before we begin. I don't deal in invented drama, and I won't hand you a villain and tell you who to be angry at. There's plenty of that already. What I do is take a story like this apart carefully, with the real facts, so you can decide for yourself what you think. If that's the kind of steady, honest royal coverage you've been looking for, do subscribe. It's free, it's one tap, and it's the only way to be sure the next one reaches you. Let's start with what's actually confirmed, because the foundation here is more solid than a lot of royal stories, and that matters. The reporting at the center of this comes from Roya Nika, the royal editor of the Sunday Times. Not an anonymous tip passed between gossip sites, a named royal editor at a serious newspaper. And what she reported is this. After his last visit to Britain went well, Harry's people have been briefing that he intends to make more and more visits to the UK. The frequency is going up, and there are firm, specific plans attached to that intention. Harry is due back in Britain, a week-long trip with engagements for his charity Wellchild and for the Invictus Games. Those are real dates, real commitments on the calendar. And here's the strategic detail that explains the timing, the thing that answers the why now in the title more completely than any rumor about a feud. The next Invictus Games are being held in Birmingham next year, in Britain.
Prince Harry is reportedly planning to return to the UK every few months after catching up with the King in July alongside wife Meghan.
And Harry understandably wants to increase the frequency of his visits in the run-up to those games, as well as more actively supporting his UK-based charities. Think about what that means for a second, because it reframes the whole story. A man who is bringing a major international event, the Invictus Games, the thing he founded, The achievement he is proudest of to British soil is going to need to be in Britain a lot in the months beforehand. That's not intrigue, that's logistics. If you were organizing a huge event in Birmingham next year, you'd be back and forth constantly too. The fullest version of the briefing, which was carried across several outlets, put it like this, and I'll read it to you carefully, because the language is revealing. The template for his visits, the source said, has been working well, so the frequency of trips will increase, especially in the run-up to Invictus. He'll be coming back and forth a lot more every few months.
But for Harry, I mean, he certainly feels sort of rejuvenated after meeting the king. So
the way the wind is blowing, he's going to want to be here more and more. He's happy these trips can now have more focus on the patronages and be less obscured by the other nonsense. He wants more of a foothold here, more trips back, less courtroom drama. And the source added, he always loves seeing his family. Now there's a lot packed into that, and I want to pull out the honest reading of it before anyone spins it in either direction. Read one way, this is the least sinister story in the world. A man wants to do more charity work in his home country. He's got a huge event coming up there, and he'd like to see his family while he's at it. That's it. That's a good news story. A son who left under a cloud is finding a way to come home and do some good. Read another way. And this is where the drama lives. The phrase more of a foothold here is doing an enormous amount of work. Because a foothold is not a visit. A foothold is a position. It's a base. It's the beginning of something permanent. And for certain people inside this family, the idea of Harry re-establishing a permanent foothold in Britain is not a warm family story at all. It's a problem. So, which is it? A charity schedule or the first step of a comeback? And the honest answer, the one I can actually stand behind, is that it's genuinely unclear. And it may well be both. It can be true that Harry wants to support his charities and true that he wants to rebuild his place in Britain. Those aren't opposites. People contain both things at once. But here's what turns this from a scheduling story into the story the title promises. Because whatever Harry's intentions are, there is a wall standing between him and any real return. And that wall has a name. Everyone talks about Harry's rift with the royal family as though it's one single feud. It isn't. It's at least two different relationships, running at completely different temperatures, and if you blur them together, you'll never understand this story. There's Harry and his father, and there's Harry and his brother. And they are not the same. With Charles, the door, as we've seen over the past year, is not fully closed. The king met privately with Harry. He met the grandchildren. Whatever the tensions, Charles has shown repeatedly that he is willing to keep some kind of line open to his younger son. Blood is blood, as those close to him put it. A father near the end of his reign, reaching for his family. But William is a different matter entirely, and the reporting on William is strikingly consistent across multiple outlets over a long period. It comes down to one word, and the word is silence. According to royal correspondence, William has maintained complete silence toward Harry. He has reportedly refused to speak to his younger brother since the release of Harry's memoir back in 2023. Not a public feud, not a war of words, something colder than that, a total withdrawal. William simply stopped, and the veteran royal correspondent Jenny Bond, speaking to the Mirror, described William's position in a way that I think is the single most useful sentence for understanding him. She said that William, as far as anyone can see, seems set on concentrating on his own family and his own work, without the angst of dealing with his rift with Harry. Read that again, because it's important and it's fair. That is not the description of a man plotting revenge. It's the description of a man who has chosen to build a wall and live behind it. William hasn't been attacking Harry. He's been ignoring him deliberately, carefully, as a survival strategy. He decided at some point that the healthiest thing he could do was to wall off the whole painful subject of his brother and pour himself into his wife, his children, and his enormous future responsibilities. And you can understand why when you remember what he's carrying. This is a man whose wife went through a cancer diagnosis, a man whose father is a king undergoing cancer treatment, a man who is, in practical terms, the future of the entire institution, taking on more and more of its weight every year. William has had every reason in the world to decide that he simply does not have the emotional room to relitigate the fight with Harry, so he closed the door and turned away. Now here's where Harry's plan collides with William's wall, because William's whole strategy, the piece he's managed to build, depends on Harry being absent. It works precisely because Harry is 5,000 miles away in California, appearing only occasionally. You can wall off a subject that lives on another continent. It's much harder to wall off a subject that's coming back to Britain every few months, building a foothold, doing engagements, generating headlines, and standing, however far away, on the same small island as you. That's the problem in one sentence. Harry wants to come home more. William has built his entire piece on Harry staying away. Those two things cannot both survive. And that is exactly why the royal commentators started reaching for the word in your title. When one broadcaster looked at Harry and Meghan's planned return, the assessment was blunt. Prince William, he said, will be furious. Not sad, not conflicted, furious. Because the return doesn't just reopen an old wound, it threatens the entire careful arrangement William built to stop that wound from bleeding. But before we get to the wound itself, and there is a very specific wound at the bottom of this, I want to deal with the harder, colder reason William has to worry. Because for the future king, this was never only about two brothers and their feelings. It's about the throne he's going to inherit. And that raises the stakes far beyond anything personal. Here's the thing that separates William's position from an ordinary family estrangement. And it's the piece most of the coverage misses entirely. William is not just a brother who got hurt. He is the heir. And that means every decision about Harry isn't only a personal choice. It's an institutional one. It's about the future of the monarchy that William will one day lead. And this is where you have to bring in the theory that the commentators keep circling. The idea that Harry's return might not be purely personal at all. When one broadcaster looked at the planned visit, he raised exactly this question: whether the return was really about family or whether it was partly strategic, whether the couple might be seeking renewed relevance through their royal links. Now, I flagged at the start that I'd tell you when we crossed from fact into interpretation, and this is one of those moments. Nobody can see inside Harry's head. Its strategic reading is a theory held by certain commentators, not an established fact. Harry's own explanation, the charities, Invictus, loving his family, is a perfectly complete account on its own. So take the strategic reading as what it is, a suspicion, not a proof. But it's a suspicion that matters, because it's almost certainly one William shares, and you can see why it would keep the future king awake at night. Think about it from the institutional side. The commercial value of the Sussex brand, the deals, the documentaries, the whole enterprise is powered in large part by their connection to the royal family. The closer they are to the institution, the more valuable that connection becomes. So a pattern of increasing visits, of rebuilding a foothold in Britain, of being welcomed back, however warmly or coolly, by the king, doesn't just heal a family. From a certain angle, it also relaunches a brand. It pours value back into the very enterprise that William believes did so much damage to the institution in the first place. And here's the deeper fear, the one that turns a personal grievance into an institutional dread. If Harry can attack the monarchy through the interviews, through the book, through everything on the record, and still be welcomed back into its private spaces, still rebuild his relevance through his royal connection, then what message does that send? What does it say about the line between being a working royal and cashing in on royalty from the outside? William, the future guardian of that line, has every reason to worry that his father's warmth, however well-meant, is quietly erasing a boundary the monarchy depends on. That's why for William, this can never be just, do I forgive my brother? It's what does letting my brother back in do to the institution I'm going to inherit? His father is thinking as a father. Blood is blood. Bring them home. William has to think as a future king. What are the rules? Where's the line? What precedent does this set? And those two ways of seeing the same situation lead to completely different answers. That's the real fault line running through this family. Not love versus hate, sentiment versus institution, the father's heart versus the heir's duty. And Harry, whatever his intentions, is standing right on that fault line every time he flies home. So there's the cold, institutional reason for William's anger. But underneath the strategy and the succession and the precedent, there is something much older and much more human, a specific injury. And to understand it, you have to look at the new book, because the book is where all these old wounds have just been pulled back up into the light. There is, in fact, a new book about this family. It's real, it's recent, and it's worth knowing exactly what it is, because a lot of channels will wave vaguely at a new royal book without ever telling you what they're talking about. I'm going to tell you. The book is called Betrayal. Its full title is Betrayal, Power, Deceit, and the Fight for the Future of the Royal Family. It was written by Tom Bower, a veteran investigative biographer with a long history of tough, unauthorized books about powerful people, including an earlier one about Harry and Meghan. It was published in March 2026 by Bonnier Books UK. It runs to well over 400 pages. And tellingly, excerpts from it were serialized in the times before the book itself even came out, which is how these things build maximum impact, seeding the most explosive passages into the newspapers ahead of publication. The title alone tells you the temperature. Betrayal. That is not a neutral, even-handed word. Bower's books are not gentle. He has described his own research method bluntly as find the victims. His earlier book on the Sussexes was openly critical, built by his own account on around 80 sources. So this is not a warm family portrait. It's a hard-edged, adversarial account from a writer with a documented point of view. And now let me give you something concrete from inside it, because this is where most channels go vague, and I won't. One of the book's most reported claims is a quote it attributes to Queen Camilla that she told a friend of Meghan's brainwashed Harry. The book also recounts an alleged argument in 2018 at William and Catherine's Kensington Palace apartment, shortly after Harry and Meghan returned from their honeymoon, a meeting that was supposed to bring the two couples back together and instead broke down, with Meghan said to have told William, in the book's telling, to take his finger out of her face. Bower's claim is that William had been skeptical of Meghan from the very start, and that Catherine shared that wariness. And running underneath the whole book is one central thread where William is concerned: the disdain in which the future king is said to hold his younger brother over the treatment of his wife and family. So this is not a gentle book, and it puts William's private feelings about Harry right at the center of the story. But here is where I have to be scrupulously fair, and this is exactly the kind of moment where less careful channels go wrong, because every one of those claims, the brainwashed quote, the finger in the face scene, all of it rests, by the book's own nature, largely on anonymous sources. And Harry and Meghan did not stay quiet about it. Their spokesperson hit back hard, and their words are worth hearing in full because it's only fair that the accused answer the accusation. Bower's commentary, they said, has long crossed the line from criticism into fixation. They accused him of having made a career out of constructing ever more elaborate theories about people he does not know and has never met. And they finished with a line as sharp as anything in the book itself. Those interested in facts, they said, will look elsewhere. Those seeking deranged conspiracy and melodrama know exactly where to find him. So hold both of those in your hands at once, because that's the honest picture. On one side, a veteran biographer with a track record, and, he insists, good lawyers and the truth. On the other, a couple calling the whole thing a fixation built on conspiracy. You do not have to decide who's right to see the important point, which is what a book like this actually does to William. Because now we come to the honest answer on the title's own question. Does this book explain William's fury? Not by itself, and I won't pretend it does. What we have are several real pressures landing on the same family in the same window: a scathing book, a planned return, and a brother reported to be seething. What the reporting does not give us is a source saying William is furious because of Tom Bower's book, and I'm not going to invent that link to make the story tidier. But here's what a book like Betrayal genuinely does. It doesn't create the anger. It does something arguably worse. It keeps the wound open. William's entire strategy, remember, is silence and distance. A best-selling book with the word betrayal on the cover, serialized across the Times, debated on every morning show, is the sworn enemy of silence and distance. It drags the whole family drama back into the daylight at the exact moment William is trying hardest to keep it buried. It won't let him look away. And to understand why he wants so badly to look away, why any book, any return, any reminder cuts this particular man so deeply, you have to go back to the original wound, the one that started all of this, the one Harry himself chose to put into the world. You cannot understand William's anger, the real thing, not the tabloid version, without going back to a single room in Kensington Palace, and a single story that Harry chose to tell about it. The estrangement between these two brothers is not vague. It's not a general drifting apart. It has a specific origin, and Harry is the one who made it public in his own memoir in 2023. Now, before I describe what he wrote, I want to be completely clear about what this is because it matters, and I'm going to put the caveat first, not bury it after. What follows is Harry's account. One brother's version of a private moment, written and published by that brother in a book he was paid a great deal to write. William has never given his side. The palace declined to comment at the time. So we are hearing one voice describe a two-person event, and the other person has said nothing. Hold it as exactly that. Harry's telling, not an agreed set of facts. With that firmly in mind, here's what Harry wrote. He described a confrontation with William at his Kensington Palace home in 2019. According to his account, the argument was about Meghan. Harry wrote that William had called her difficult, rude, and abrasive. The confrontation escalated. And then came the passage that went around the world. Harry wrote that his brother grabbed him by the collar, ripped his necklace, and knocked him to the floor, that he landed on a dog's bowl, which cracked beneath him, the pieces cutting into his back. The dog bowl. It became one of the most famous passages in the entire book. And for good reason. It's vivid, it's physical, and it's devastating. It took the abstract idea of the brothers fell out and turned it into an image nobody could forget, the future king, standing over his younger brother on the floor. But here's the thing, and this is the key to understanding William. It almost doesn't matter, for William's feelings, whether every detail of that account is accurate. What matters is that it was told at all, because, put yourself in William's position, Whatever happened in that room in 2019, it was private. It was between two brothers. And Harry took it, the worst, most shameful, most intimate moment between them, and he published it for the whole world to read over breakfast. He turned their most private pain into a product. That is the betrayal from William's side. Not a policy disagreement, not even the fight itself, the publishing of it. The decision to take the one thing that should have stayed sealed inside the family forever, a physical fight between brothers, a moment of total loss of control, and hand it to millions of strangers for money, and you do not come back from that with a phone call. You cannot unpublish a book. Every copy of that memoir still sits on shelves around the world, with that scene in it, permanent and unretractable, which means that for William, the injury isn't a memory that fades. It's a physical object that still exists, being read by new people somewhere in the world every single day. Most wounds heal because time carries them away from you. William's can't, because Harry turned it into a book, and a book doesn't recede into the past. It gets reprinted, it gets translated, it sits in a shop window. That is why a new book, even one by someone else, even one critical of Harry rather than by him, presses straight down on the original injury. Tom Bower's betrayal didn't open the wound. Harry's spare did that. Bower just proves it will never be allowed to close. Which brings us to the question the commentators are actually circling underneath all the furious headlines. Not is William angry, but what is he going to do about it? Because he's had a strategy for years, and that strategy may no longer be possible. For years, William's strategy has worked for one reason and one reason only. Harry has been absent. You can hold a dignified silence towards someone who lives 5,000 miles away. The distance did the work for him. That is precisely what is now ending. And the same royal correspondents who described William's silence are beginning to say he may soon find Harry's return impossible to ignore, that the heir, quiet for years while his brother made his appeals, may finally be forced to answer the olive branch, one way or another. Here is the trap, and it's a cruel one. While Harry is in California, William's silence looks dignified. But once Harry is back on British soil every few months, running a major event in Birmingham, doing engagements, filling the papers, that same silence starts to look like an active choice made over and over in full public view. It stops being a shield, it becomes a statement, and William has no clean way out of it. Keep the silence, and he risks looking cold and unforgiving. Break it, and he reopens the whole wound on Harry's terms, at a moment not of his choosing. And there is a third person caught in the middle of it, Charles. The king is trying to reconcile with his younger son, but he must do it, as Jenny Bond noted, without offending the older one. Every warm step toward Harry is a step that risks wounding William further. So the king moves carefully and slowly, and the tension only tightens, because in trying to heal one son, he keeps reopening the hurt of the other. That is the genuinely painful heart of it, and it's worth pausing on before anyone rushes to judgment. There is no villain in this corner of the story. There is a father who wants his family whole, a younger son who wants to come home, and an older son who was hurt in a way that publishing made permanent, and who now has to watch the door reopen whether he likes it or not. Which leaves the one question none of them can answer, and it isn't the question in the title at all. So let's answer the title plainly, and then go past it, because the honest answer is smaller than the headline and the real question is bigger. Why is Harry returning now? Strip away the drama and it comes down to three things: a calendar, a cause, and a longing for home. The Invictus Games are coming to Birmingham next year, and the man who founded them needs to be here to build it. His UK charities need him present, and by his own people's account, he loves seeing his family. That's the whole confirmed answer. Not a conspiracy, a schedule, and a son who misses home. And the new book? It didn't create William's anger. That anger was already there, laid down years ago, the day Harry published their most private moment for the world to read. All a book like Betrayal does is refuse to let that wound close. William's quiet tragedy is that the cure he chose, silence, distance, is the one thing the world will not grant him. The books keep coming. The visits are increasing. And so the question is no longer why Harry is returning. It's this: can he ever really come home? Because Charles can open the door, Harry can walk through it, again and again every few months. But William is the future, the one who will one day hold the pen that decides what this family is. And William has made his position clear in the only language he has chosen to use: silence. A silence that says, I have not forgotten, I have not forgiven, and I am not ready. So Harry can come back to Britain as often as he likes. He can build his foothold, run his games, do his good work, and see his father. But the one homecoming that would truly mean he had come home, the one with his brother, is the one thing all those trips cannot buy. If anything, the more he returns, the harder that door may close. Because every visit reminds William of exactly what he is trying not to feel. And maybe that is the quiet tragedy at the center of all this. Two brothers who once walked behind their mother's coffin together, side by side, the whole world watching, united by the worst day of their lives. And now one of them is flying home, reaching out, and the other stands very still behind a wall he built to survive, watching his brother approach and unable to decide whether to open the gate or hold it shut. The king wants them whole. The country wants them whole. Harry in his way seems to want it too, but you cannot reconcile with someone who is not ready. And William for now is not ready. He may not be for a very long time, so Harry will keep coming back. And the real question was never why now. The real question is whether the brother waiting at the end of all those trips will ever finally turn around. And that one, not even the people closest to this family can answer.